Hi, I'm Sarah McKenna, CEO of Sequentum. I gave a talk last week to FISD Alt Data Council and have had many requests to record it and share on our YouTube. So let's get to it. 2025 is the year of AI agents, a very exciting time for Sequentum because we have a browser inside our platform and have been orchestrating browsers for 17 years. And the eyes and ears of these AI agents are nothing but the browser. Money is pouring in to companies like BrowserBase or Browser Use that do browser infrastructure, or any company that's able to do any sort of basic scraping or crawling or web automation. And the numbers are getting quite large. So it's an exciting time to be in our field. The promise is that if you wrap a browser around an LLM, you're going to get digital autonomous workers. And the belief, at least at the beginning of this year, was that LLMs were going to get more accurate, cheaper, and faster. But that's not really what's happened, is it? In April, we started seeing cracks. Jan LeCun, the head of Meta's AI, said, he's not interested in LLMs anymore. He doesn't think of it as real thinking. The next month, or I guess 2 months later, Apple came out with the Illusion of Thinking paper saying that, basically showing through evidence that if you give too many variables to an LLM, it hallucinates every time. So real accuracy problems and really not thinking. There was an MIT study that came out in August, and they queried a corpus of companies, and the ones that they spoke to was over 1,000, maybe 1,200 companies. 95% had not realized any value from their Gen AI investments. In September, Mira Murati, who was the former CTO of OpenAI, left, raised an enormous amount of money to start her own company and build her own LLM. She changed the weights and configuration to get the LLM to give a consistent answer every time. Right? That's what we want is consistency. The problem is she didn't solve the accuracy problem. So it was still, if it came up with a wrong answer, it would consistently give you the wrong answer. At the end of September, Richard Sutton, who is basically the founding father of reinforcement learning, came out and said that LLMs were a dead end, that this is not real learning. It's just parrot mimicking. And it's not real thinking and it's not real learning. And we're not going to get any better. In October, the Information, which is a news source specific to the tech industry, was reporting that the adoption of this AI was going to take years. And actually, since I gave this talk, Ken Griffin of Citadel has come out and said they haven't seen any value from Gen AI. And this puts a lot of it into question, right? But Sequentum, right? What are we doing, right? In this context, we're laser focused on accuracy and driving trust in data. Our tagline is trust in data. What do you do when there's all this value and opportunity locked into this idea of putting a browser around an LLM? Well, we've actually successfully commercialized this concept already. So the second ChatGPT came out, we saw that with that LLM conceptual understanding of data, you could sort of insert it as glue and come out with a higher value product. So the first thing we came out with in Q1 of 2023, we launched the risk alerts, where you upload your list of data vendors, and we will use sentiment analysis to tell you if there is negative news with your particular concerns, right? In the default case, it's cyber breach, fraud, or litigation, right? This was the simplest use case we could think of. It was text only. It's dealing with, those very early models. And it worked so well that we really only sort of revisit the model, once a month. We have very specific use cases and training data sets that we built evaluations for to make sure that it was consistently performing over time. Sometimes there would be a model upgrade and the model would degrade the accuracy and the sort of success rate that we were getting. so we wouldn't upgrade. But we basically built all these test harnesses, and we figured out how to deploy and production and sort of go live with AI agents. We figured out how to basically deploy and do the quality assurance around it. The next year, we took all those learnings and we rolled them into the competitive promotions monitor. And in this case, it's a lot more complicated. So it's text, it's image, it's looking at the homepages of a long list of competitors. And it's basically assessing whether or not they have promotions, what those promotions are. It comes up with a promotion model, right? So there's an underlying data model that you have to adhere to. That was a big piece of learning for us. How do you do that? And with the much more complex data and process, we basically went to a model reassessment process every month. And we were constantly upgrading and constantly improving. And it's also been commercially very successful. The third area that we've used AI in is in our scraping agent creation. So we're not comfortable using AI in our scraping process because we don't agree, we think it's too slow. We think it's not accurate enough. And it's just too wonky. So what we're doing instead is we've created a magic wand where you can basically click a button and it'll create your agent for you. But you still have the power of our editor to customize that agent to your heart's content and to put all of your data validation success criteria all around it and to validate that it's doing exactly what you want before it automatically runs, right? The running, scaling of agents, this is something that Sequentum has been doing for almost 2 decades, and we're able to, super scale data collection, but now we're also able to provide an easy way to get started with our McLaren of scraping platforms. Now, how it's evolved, the magic wand is obviously not at all simple, right? It's not as simple as the vendor risk alerts. It's obviously more complex than a promotion tracker because it applies to any type of website and any schema. And so we actually built an extension to our platform just for the evals. So we have an evaluation of schema type, right? We can support any schema type. It can be, a product, a news article. It can be real estate listings, whatever it is, it detects the schema. And then on a second stage, it looks at the data that's collected from that agent, and it confirms that it has data for all the items that are in that schema, right? And that's the two together are very, very powerful for evaluating the efficacy of the agent creation process and then the results of the data that agent is getting. It's very, very interesting and not at all simple. Another thing we've done is we've added command templates to the platform so that we can wrap around whatever the flavor of the month is in AI. So if there's a better PDF data extractor or a better earnings call transcript generator, right? We'll capture the audio stream with the platform, but transcribing it, getting sentiment out of that audio stream, there's libraries, there's improvements every month in various AI capabilities, and we can wrap around them and include them in our automation as soon as they're available. And the last thing I'll say is we're going to come out with benchmarks in this incredible year of AI agents. And we also know what the hype has been like. And we promise that when we show you something, it's not some flashy demo for a boardroom. It is really tried and true in the Sequentum way, very, very focused on quality and driving trust in that data. Now, in this year of AI agents, we see that everyone is experimenting. We see that from direct feedback from our customers, we're very lucky to have the customers that we have. And we think that this feedback is worth bringing back to you. So first and foremost, we think it's really, really important to mention that this summer we started seeing renewal agreements that had that required us to attest that we were not going to use scraping in our that we were not going to use AI in our scraping process. And this is really, really interesting because in talking to these brands, corporate brands, they basically said, look, we don't trust the accuracy of AI, but your data is driving our business decision making. So we can't have any AI in there. And furthermore, our lawyers don't feel comfortable that there's a regulatory framework to really govern the use of AI generated data. So we need you to attest in this age of AI hype that you will not use AI in the scraping of our data, which was incredibly interesting. And lucky for us, we're using AI in a very specific way through the magic wand, creating that agent automatically, and also augmenting the web automation within an agent. If that client doesn't want to use AI, they don't have to use those commands. The second thing that we thought was really interesting is we were contacted shortly after Jan LeCun's talk at NVIDIA in April, when all these papers were coming out saying, wow, we can't get what we thought we were going to be able to get this year from these LLMs. And a particular quant fund came to us and said, you got to help us. We have all these portfolio managers and research managers that have drunk the Kool-Aid, and they believe that these AI scraping platforms are just going to automatically get whatever data it is that they say they want, and that we are somehow supposed to put that into a quant trading algorithm to immediately monetize that intelligence and generates those insights on the fly. And they had evaluated every scraping platform out there, and they had found the opposite, that they couldn't trust that data at all. It was incomplete. It was wrong. Sometimes the data was just not found on the site. And they were just not seeing anything that they could rely on. And they were looking to us. They actually asked us if you could please create the evaluations and the benchmarks, which we will be coming out with probably next month. The last thing I want to mention is we went to the Cornell Future of Finance and AI conference, which is always fun to attend. Rebellion Research does a great job putting together leaders in finance who have the absolute best budgets for experimenting with AI, and the academics who are really sort of on the cutting edge of what's possible. And the overarching takeaway from that conference was, okay, they're getting value in kind of the same ways that we are, in very discrete use cases where there's classification or maybe text summarization, something like that. But in general, across the board, they're really not, they haven't gotten there yet. It's not there yet. And they're really, really experimenting. And they're experimenting at an enormous scale. They're collecting tons and tons and tons of data. They're building, features in the old way, right? Using machine learning after they've pulled all the data down. And there really is no holy grail yet.